The Story of Nam Kha the Prince, or The Dream Story of Nam Kha. Hong Vu Fan. There is a book called Thuan Vu Fan during the Tang dynasty, has a generous and chivalrous personality but is a person who treats alcohol like life. The name is Fan. Fan means wine residue. Clearly the name represents his concept of life and also clearly shows his situation of not being able to do business to make a living. Half of his assets were easily wasted on extravagant spending sprees. The reason for the family and number 39's bankruptcy is due to the days of indulging in alcohol and girls, or the result of hanging out with friends, or the days of living a confused and deluded life. He once served as an officer, but because he disobeyed orders, he was dismissed. Returning home, living a carefree life, getting drunk with friends, drinking all day long. Just like that, the amount of alcohol increases day by day, but the money in hand decreases every day. Every now and then when I and number 39 am awake, I think about the bravery and spirit of the youth of our time, the eagerness to jostle with today and number 39's youth, all surrendered to the flowing water, and I can and number 39's help but shed tears of sadness. Yet, but only 3 glasses of food filled my stomach, but I was happy as usual, carefree. He lives in his hometown near Quang Lang, about 3 miles from the citadel. On the southern side of his house, there is a very tall eucalyptus tree. Under the luxuriant foliage like a parasol, he and his friends often had fun and got drunk. That tree lived for a long time, sometimes died for 30 or 40 years, and then green shoots sprouted from its trunk and came back to life. Yes, that tree has lived for a long time, its long branches stretching out in all 4 directions. Just by looking at it, you can immediately tell that it is an old tree. The soil under the transplanted tree has eroded a lot. The roots of the tree are exposed on the ground, twisting and turning, scarred. Below is the habitat of many types of insects. One day, Hong Vu Fan was so drunk that he burst into tears, as his friends said, around September 792 AD, and said, and quote, "Looking at the big and old tree, it made me even more deeply moved. End quote. Since I was a child, I used to play under the tree. When he was a child, his father and grandfather often played under this tree. By now, he felt like he was an adult. In fact, he was only nearly 30, but he was still talking nonsense and crying miserably. His friends Lao Chu and Lao Dean helped him into the house and laid him on a chair in the hallway. East side. Take a nap, just a little bit, and you and number 39 LL feel better soon. We went to feed the horse, wash it, wait for him to get better and then return. Hong Vu Fan fell asleep, and as soon as he closed his eyes, he saw 2 messengers dressed in purple coming and bowing respectfully, saying, "Kwok King Ho En is waiting for you. He has sent a carriage to pick you up, inviting you to join the court immediately." Hong Vu Fan immediately sat up and changed into nice new clothes. Coming to the gate of the house, I saw a green carriage with 4 large horses, the horses wearing yellow bridles and pink belts. A team of royal attachés of about 7 or 8 people was waiting. As soon as he sat down, the car immediately sped downhill. Large rough tree roots wrapped around, forming a large cave. Unexpectedly, the carriage drove straight into the cave. Entering the door, he saw a beautiful stretch of mountains that he had never seen before. 3 or 4 miles ahead, there is a high citadel surrounding it, with watchtowers lined up on the walls and towering arrow towers. Along the main road leading to the city gate, horse carriages moved like flowing water. Traffic was bustling. Pedestrians stood on both sides of the road to let cars pass. Everyone stared intently at the distinguished guest. Arriving in front of the citadel gate, Hong Vu Fan saw 3 golden words Ho and Kwok written on the castle and number 39's castle. The wall surrounded the city for dozens of miles, and on the road people were jostling shoulder to shoulder, as if they were all hard-working and active people. Everything was neat, clean, and incredibly polite. They greeted each other very kindly, stopped for less than an hour and then drove on ahead as if they were busy with work and didn't and #39 have much time. He didn't and #39 understand why the people here were in such a hurry. The workers wore large hats on their heads. Occasionally there are also military posts. The soldiers were handsome, their uniforms neat and clean. The king and number 39's special envoy waited at the city gate to welcome him, then accompanied him to a magnificent mansion along a long row of beautiful gardens. This is the residence of foreign guests. Upon arriving, the attendant reported that the Prime Minister had come to investigate. When the host and guest met, the Prime Minister said he would guide him to meet the Emperor. The Prime Minister said, "I want to marry the second princess to your son-in-law." Hong Vu Fan said, "This humble person dares not accept the honor." That special thing. Even though he said that, his heart rejoiced at this great blessing. My stomach thought, "Finally, my luck has come. I will show the whole country what kind of person this Hong Vu Fan is. I will definitely be an honest mandarin, worshipping the king above and comforting hundreds of families below." The days of wandering around before were all thrown into the past, so that everyone could see that we were once building an industry. After about 500 meters of the mansion, he and the Prime Minister entered a large red gate. Guards and spearmen carry spears towards the guests to pay respects. Hundreds of officials wearing uniforms stood in 2 rows on the side of the large slate-lined road, admiring the style of the guests. Sitting in the car, Hong Vu Fan felt indescribably honored and noble, something he could hardly dream of in his whole life. His friends like Lao Chu and Lao Din also stood in the crowd on the side of the road. When Hong Vu Fan passed by the 2 of them, he secretly made a gesture of recognizing each other, secretly thinking that the 2 of them must be confused when they saw their rich scene today, not knowing why they were so blessed. Being guided, he arrived at the front steps of the main hall, thinking that it must be the hall where the Emperor received distinguished guests. He was embarrassed and did not dare to look up. Quan Tan ordered him to bow down. He obeyed the order and knelt down. The Emperor decreed, "I accept your request and make an alliance with Tan Tan, which is also an honor. Now I will marry my second daughter Dao Fuang to you." He was appointed to be a royal concubine. Hong Vu Fan was so happy that he didn't and #39 know what to say. He only bowed his head and thanked her repeatedly. "Okay, now you can leave the court and return to the palace to rest for a few days and roam around freely. Enjoy the scenery of the entire city. The Prime Minister will accompany you and guide you to visit famous places. I will immediately order full preparations, and a few days later the wedding will be held." The holy order will be sent down. Everything will be done immediately." A few days later, all over the city and alley, everyone was excited to watch the princess and number 39's wedding. The princess wore thin silk clothes and jewels that sparkled like clouds. Beautiful maid-servants like angels surrounded him on all sides. Smart and gentle princess. As soon as Hong Vu Fan saw it, he was ecstatic. On the wedding night, the princess said, "I asked my father to grant you the title of Mandarin, whatever you want." The bridegroom drunkenly said, "To tell you the truth, I have been very lazy lately." He is not enthusiastic about work, public discipline, and has not thoroughly researched the way of policing and governing the country. The princess smiled gracefully and said, "Don and number 39, worry about that, I will help you." Hong Vu Fan secretly thought, "And quote, in addition to the nobility of a concubine, I also need a high official position to not be ashamed." And quote, he was so excited that he almost cried, but he was afraid that the princess would misunderstand him, so he tried to hold back. The next day, the princess begged the emperor. The emperor said, "Father wants to make you Nam Kha the crown prince." The previous governor was dismissed for neglecting his position. The beautiful citadels here are located in the mountains. Outside the city there are forests, waterfalls, and caves. People work hard and keep the law. Although their skin color is darker than ours, they are all brave and good at fighting. The princess and her son-in-law just came there to take care of things. Of course the people were happy to obey. "You will definitely be happy to do a good job. Hong Vu Fan has such a good position, he is so happy beyond his expectations." With a princess by your side, there in number 39's no limit to the horizon. He said, "Then I will take on the position of Crown Prince of Nam Kha Town." The princess corrected, "Not to Nam Kha Town but to Nam Kha District." Hong Vu Fan and number 39's only wish is for you to continue. My treasury is Lao Chu, Lao Din is the Maklu. There and number 39's nothing difficult about that. Before leaving, the 100 mandarins sent him off, and His Majesty the Emperor sent them all the way to the palace gate. There were as many people as ants, competing to see the princess and her son-in-law riding together in the carriage to go on their mission. The girls shed tears, just because the people of this country are sentimental. In front of the princess and number 39's carriage there is a cavalry team and military music, and behind the carriage there is a military escort. It took 3 days of traveling before they reached Nam Kha district, and the people cheered loudly. The newlywed couple, staying for a whole year in Nam Kha district, have had a wonderful day. The people of hundreds of families are gentle, obedient and keep the law. Everyone takes care of their profession. Throughout the city there are no wanderers, lazy or indolent people, there are no beggars. Hong Vu Fan heard that if there was a war, regardless of men and women, everyone volunteered to fight the enemy to protect their homes, not sparing their lives, but killing and persecuting each other very rarely happened. The princess was kind and compassionate. People, so he is loved and respected by the people. Hong Vu Fan has a lazy nature, so the princess often has to wake him up early and handle the work to set an example for hundreds of families. Everything made him satisfied, only the diligent political work seemed to be difficult. In public places, there was always a vase of fine wine, but because of his guilty conscience, he often tried his best to hold back. Forced to not disappoint the princess and number 39's love. Moreover, he understood very clearly that if he did not work hard to take care of the people, he would not be worthy of being the royal family and number 39's trust. In the leisurely afternoons, he usually did not have to go to the palace to take care of business. He often walked with his beloved wife in the jungle, held hands and strolled along the river, or drank a few drinks with Lao Chu and Lao Din. Cave painting. The weather is beautiful and the scenery is beautiful. Being happy to reward everyone fully but not being satisfied with a drink of pleasure. Enough to see that being a good Mandarin, I am good, is also a miserable job. His wife often told him, that and number 39's enough, Don and number 39's drink anymore. He thought, and quote, how many people are perfect? And quote, he was very grateful to the princess, because she helped him with everything, handling the documents for him. Important. Old Chu and Lao Din worked for him, both respected and feared him. He thought to himself, and quote, if you put it calmly, my life is clearly very satisfying, there is no need to wish for anything. And quote, a year has passed, my beloved wife suddenly caught a cold and died of illness. Hong Vu Fan was in so much pain that he had no way to relieve his sadness and continued to drink alcohol. He submitted his resignation letter and returned to work. And quote, returning to the capital, he escorted the princess and number 39's body home, according to the royal burial ritual. Using the money he had accumulated, he built his wife a mausoleum made of white stone, on a towering hill. He cried. Feeling sad, he decided to stay by the mausoleum for 3 years. The princess was dead, everything was gone. He was lonely and miserable, roaming around the city, not counting day and night. He often went to pubs to buy wine. The emperor lost his beloved daughter, and Hong Vu Fan became more and more indifferent. Someone told the king that his son-in-law was wandering around outside, causing him to lose his ability to communicate. Because he thought of his beloved daughter, the emperor could not bear to order his dismissal. His situation was known to hundreds of people. His friends gradually turned their backs and abandoned him. The situation became more and more dire to the point that he had to borrow money from Lao Chu and Lao Din to drink alcohol. There was a time when someone discovered him lying drunk on the ground in a bar all night. The elders among the people all requested, "Get rid of that corrupt guy. It clearly makes our country lose face." The emperor is also embarrassed to have such a son-in-law. One day, he told Hong Vu Fan, "The princess has passed away, you shouldn't and #39 be too sad." "Well, let a number 39's go home so the days can calm down a bit, shall we? This is my home. Where else can I go now? My home is in Quanglang. Have you forgotten?" Hong Vu Fan vaguely remembered that Quanglang had a house, and a year ago she had been to that area. He bowed his head listlessly and said he wanted to go home. "Okay, let me send someone to send you home." He saw 2 messengers bringing him here the other day. But this time, as soon as he arrived at the gate, he only saw an ugly and broken carriage, with no soldiers, no attaches, and no friends to see him off. Even the clothes the servants offered were old, tattered, and faded. When passing through the city gate, no one paid any attention. He recalled the glorious and prosperous scenes of the past, suddenly fully understanding that the rich scene on earth was completely illusory. He still clearly remembered the route from last year. Not long after, the horse-drawn carriage passed through a stone gate. At a glance, he recognized the old village and was suddenly ecstatic. The messenger brought him home, helped him sit on a chair against the wall of the east corridor, and loudly said, "We are home now." Hong Vu Fan woke up startled and saw his friends Lao Chu and Lao Din there. Standing in the yard washing his feet, the sun cast its shadow on the east wall. He exclaimed in surprise, "Life is like a dream." Lao Chu and Lao Din rushed over and asked, "Why, what? Does Da feel awake at all?" He recounted the thrilling dream in Ho and country to two people, both of whom were surprised. He led Chu and Din, two men, out under the tree. He pointed to the winding tree roots and a large cave underneath and said, "This is where the carriage took me in. I still remember it very clearly. Nyat, I think you and number 39, re-fascinated by the tree essence. This eucalyptus tree is very old." Hong Vu Fan said, "You two come back tomorrow morning. Let and number 39 look at this cave together." The next day, he ordered his servant to hold an axe and pick to dig up the cave. After cutting off some large tree roots, we discovered that this cave was about 10 meters square. In the cave, the path is winding and winding. On the east side, there is a flat open field with a small citadel, with paths, areas, and passageways where thousands of ants are surrounding it. In the middle there is a high platform. On top there are two large ants with white wings and white heads. There are many large ants standing on all four sides. Hong Vu Fan was so surprised and said, "This is Ho and Kwok. The emperor is sitting in that palace." In the middle of the cave there is a long passage to a tree branch on the south side. There is a large cave. Outside there is an ant. Inside the mud structure, there is also a passage. The color of the ants here is darker than those in the center of the cave. He recognized it as the castle of Nam Kha district, the small town where he had lived for a peaceful year. The ant and number 39's nest is disturbed by people. He saw the soldiers under his control in the past running in terror all over the place. His heart suddenly felt so sad that he could and #39 bear it. At the end of the rotten roots of the tree, a groove was carved out. Next to it was a piece of green moss. Unexpectedly, this was the place where the boy and the princess had lived through their endlessly happy days in the jungle. Nearby there was a small cave. In this cave his wife once advised him, "And quat. That and number 39's enough. Don and number 39 waste any more. And quat." Hong Vu Fan was constantly surprised. He measured the path to the center of the cave. This road he and the princess used to ride in a horse-drawn carriage for 3 days. Finally, he discovered another small cave about 10 meters to the east. There were a few rocks, only an ant there walking around in a daze. In the middle was a small mound about 3 inches high. There is a small rock on a high cliff. Looking at that shape, he immediately thought of the princess and number 39's mausoleum. He still knew that it was just a dream, but he was still as inconsolable as ever when it came to the princess and number 39's love. He could #39 help but exclaim at the illusory nothingness of human life. just like smoke and clouds passing through his eyes. He sighed and turned to tell Chu and Dean, "I thought I was dreaming, but now I know that Ho and Kwok is completely real. In broad daylight, if there and number 39 s no trace, it and number 39 s fake. Basically, we were all dreaming." From then on, Hong Vu Fan was completely different from before. He became a monk, started drinking again, and drank even harder. 3 years later he died. Lu Kong Ta started preparing Du language Dong rewrote Nguyen Quoc Don translated by PTS. La Duy Lan Tears of the Fox. Thank you for joining us for today's fairy tale. We hope these stories bring joy and meaning to your day. If you love our channel, please hit the subscribe button so you won't miss any exciting tales. Wishing you a good night and sweet dreams. See you in the next story.